As Irfa mentioned, I will be talking about what are different digital health technologies that are making a difference in the sector of diabetic foot care, primarily in prevention and management of diabetic foot care. We are not going to dive in much into the treatment sector because that's more involved in the clinical side of things and surgical interventions. Our focus is more around how we can support patients, how we can support general care coordination with leading and upcoming and under development digital health technologies, and kind of strengthen the preventive healthcare side of things rather than the treatment side of the things in healthcare. So let's get started. Before we discuss on what are different type of digital solutions and where they can help in, let's first understand the problem space. When we talk about diabetic foot care, we talk about the diabetic foot ulcers and severities it causes and complications it leads to, which usually happens in patients with diabetes mellitus 2 as well as 1. But it happens when it is not well controlled, the complications. There can be a variety of causes that leads to diabetic foot ulcers, including some sort of underlying neuropathy, some sort of peripheral vascular disease, or in general ignorance of foot care or glycemic control. And it is one of the most common causes for osteomyelitis of the foot, and later on unfortunately leads to amputation of lower extremities. So while these can be very well prevented, these are not prevented because there is not much awareness about it. There is poor control of patients on their health conditions, and there's comparatively less intervention from clinicians when it is required. And if we talk about the disease burden, globally right now, about 18.6 million people have active DFU, and an additional 131 million are at risk of developing it. And in terms of cost, if you look into US statistics alone, $1.9 billion per year is spent on just emergency department treatment of DFUs. And this figure for inpatient care goes to about around $9 billion per year. And you can estimate and extrapolate, how big the cost will be globally. In India in itself, diabetes is a huge problem, not just because of our population, but also because of the prevalence of the disease in general and history of the disease in the continent. And coming to the specific prevalence and severity of diabetic foot ulcers, a whooping 25% of people, which is like 1/4 of people with diabetes, actually end up developing foot ulcer. And if we talk about lower extremity amputation, it occurs at a rate of 10% per DFU. Globally, it is estimated about 6.8 million people have already had an amputation, and out of this 6.8 million, 4.3 million have no access to any sort of processes. So you can imagine how, on what a big scale, this big chunk of population is living with this, severity or adverse outcomes of diabetic foot ulcer, and how big is this space in terms of addressing the gap. And it's just not about amputation, but in general, the quality of life is depleted adversely for patients suffering from diabetic foot ulcers, whether it is about frequent falls, frequent fractures, overall weakness in their foot, reduced mobility, and overall increased mortality rates. So, while we understand the problem and we understand the severity of the problem, we also understand that there is a big gap and a big opportunity to improve outcomes, to improve the scenario as it stands today. At least 70% of amputations are potentially preventable. And studies have reported to prevent this, all we need is appropriate foot care. We need regular monitoring of temperature and pressure of the foot, and we need medical intervention in a timely fashion, such that prevention can be made or patients can be empowered to take care of themselves in a more responsible and informed manner. So the thing is, how can digital technologies fill this gap? How can we leverage the advances in technology to really tap into this opportunity of improving the area or improving the outcome for diabetic foot ulcer? There are a couple of ways of doing that, but some of the very common and direct ways in this niche area of diseases. First, we have to have technologies that can facilitate data monitoring of DFU-related risk factors. We have to empower patients to take better self-care of themselves. We have to improve engagement with providers. We have to fill in the gaps in care coordination, and create a more stronger network of connected care around patients as well as around providers and other non-profit organizations working in this sector. So really sew the small pieces together to create the whole picture, to the whole mesh of a well-coordinated network. And if we talk about market share, while this is for treatment, by 2026, it is predicted to reach about 12 billion US dollars, and it is growing at a compound annual growth rate of 8%. I know we are talking about prevention and management, but just imagine if we could mobilize some of this fund, which is predicted to be spent on treatment, towards preventive healthcare. It will not only help us saving a big chunk of healthcare cost, but also improving lives, also a huge value on investment, not just return on investment. So now that we have understood the problem a little better, we have understood the opportunity a little better, and we have understood where all digital health devices can tap into, let's have a look at what are the various solutions that have been under development, that have been out in the market to help in this space. While there is like a plethora of these solutions, I've tried to broadly categorize them into 4 categories. The first one being the very important and essential, not that others are not important, but very direct and very, I would say, most talked about category is the remote monitoring for early detection and management category, where we have these smart devices, which could be some sort of, some sort of wearable or some sort of point of care, portable, small, not exactly diagnostic, but more of monitoring devices that can help you monitor your foot temperature and foot pressure on a regular basis and keep you in link with providers whenever any sort of abnormality is detected. And the logos down here are of some representative companies that we will talk about in greater detail in following slides. The second category of solutions we have here is under connected care. We have been regularly talking about how healthcare and technology are amalgamating and really invading in our personal spaces, in our, not just personal spaces, but in our environments where we are most comfortable. We need not do much of effort, be it our homes, be it the medical shop we visit, be it the shopping center we go at. So we talk about creating smart homes, smart hospitals, smart cities. So really making this Internet of Things a reality and a wide scale reality. And then the pandemic has taught us the importance of telemedicine. While it had been there for now, I would say more than a decade, but we did not see this surge in uptake as we saw in the last 2 years. And of course, then as we talk about, the pandemic, where the hospitals were full, where there was huge burden on the inpatient care staff, we know how important it can be to bring some sort of hospital services at home to patients, not just to save cost for the health systems, but also increase convenience for the patients and just work in a collaborative fashion to make the health system more productive in general. And then we have been making leaps of, I would say, progress in digital care coordination. In India also, we have seen the Ayushman Bharat Digital Health Mission out now. We are making more efforts to bring about a uniform health record access and implementation across the country. And why is it important is when you'll have a uniform, solidified, well interoperable record of health data, you can run AI and ML algorithms on that data. You can use that data to really for developing clinical decision support algorithms, and that's how you really leverage the health data for predicting adverse events before they happen and taking the clinical triage at the right time. And then we have the third category of self-care. You would say, a subcategory under self-care are the wellness solutions, which help you in running an active life, whether it's about a good exercise regime, whether it's about good nutrition and stress management. And you would say that it's a common category, we already know about it. Yes, we do, but have we thought about applying it for our specific disease area, or are we aware how it can be aligned and how it intersects to actually work on a targeted therapy treatment? So that's some sort of things we need to think about, that how we can use the things which are present, the offerings which are present in our environment already, that we are familiar with them, but we are not maybe using them up to their full potential. And similarly, the thing goes for these digital assistants like Amazon Alexa. When we talk about regular monitoring, why can't we set automated reminders for Amazon Alexa to tell us that, you have to monitor your foot, let's say, every 3 times a week, or every 10 times a month, based on the patient's condition. So just using the tools around us to become better at management of our health is the key point here. And then there are some specific technologies that help in overall adherence to your treatment regimen or treatment protocols, and improve the mindfulness, the conscious effort, the conscious understanding of your health condition. And again, I will discuss these in more detail in following slides. The fourth category we have here is another interesting category. This is about disease and risk prediction. We have all heard about the impact AI and ML or deep learning algorithms are having on medicine in general, or actually at various facets of healthcare. In this, in this particular category, we are more focused on how it is helping in patient identification and risk prediction. While we'll discuss in more detail, but just by developing an automated algorithm on real world data, and using time in the right manner, can improve the chances of prevention to several hundred folds. And some of it has been demonstrated at the facilities where such solutions have been deployed. So let's dive into more detail into each of these categories one by one. And let's begin with the remote monitoring category. So here are the 4 representative companies that I've mentioned here that are quite popular in this space, but that doesn't mean that these are the only ones. There are many other. When we talk about FITC in terms of mechanism, it just captures, temperature increase spots using a camera, and it's one of its kind. Technology, because it is contactless, while the others in the market are contact based. It kind of captures the image of the entire visible foot area, and it sends real-time alerts to physicians if some sort of abnormality is detected. It is still under development and not yet cleared or approved for marketing, while the other 3 company devices mentioned are sort of FDA registered or FDA cleared. Coming to Orfix, as you can see in the image down here, it's like a sensory insole that you can insert in your shoe, and it will help you monitor the pressure and the temperature of the foot. Of course, it is contact-based. It also sends real-time information to physicians, and it's registered not just with FDA, but also Health Canada. And if you notice how these technologies are built in terms of user centricity, just to be very convenient for users to use, or just to become, swiftly and in a streamlined fashion, just fit in lifestyle of users. So that's one of the things that's very important, especially when we're talking about regular monitoring on periodic basis without causing much inconvenience to patients, such that the adoption of these technologies and their potential is well understood by patients. Coming to the third company here, the Podimetrics, it also captures temperature increase spots, and it's like a smart mat where patients can stand. Of course, again, the foot area, which is in direct contact with the mat, is the one that is monitored. They do not send out real-time information, but there are capabilities where you can reach out to physicians if some sort of preventive action is required. And the 4th technology we have here is the Siren socks. Actually, they are some sort of smart socks, and the entire area covered by the socks is actually monitored. And if you look at it, it looks quite normal. There is nothing bulky or nothing, that appears quite different from a distance. So very well fit in patients' natural home, comfortable environments. And again, it sends real-time information to physicians and it's FDA registered. So these companies represent the promise of how these smart technologies can make the work of monitoring your disease such, very easy, very convenient, and very effective at the same time, keeping you in touch with physicians in almost real-time fashion for most of them. And also very comparatively light in terms of learning curve and overall usability. Coming to the second category we had discussed, which is self-care. We had talked about the wellness solutions. We have all heard about this platform called Noom. I've just picked one representative example. There are several others from Weight Watchers, Healthify Me, and lots of it. So basically, they help you track your calorie intake. They suggest what should be your physical activity levels. They might connect you to some physical activity trainers as well. And many of them also have some CBT modules incorporated where they will provide you evidence-based weight loss strategies. And in general, they keep users very motivated, engaged, and provide continuous and instant feedback. And as I mentioned, these are very well applicable and can be customized to specific targeted niche disease areas, and not just in general for anybody who wants to lose weight, but can also be for targeted therapies for targeted disease areas. And then self-risk management and automated reminders. We discussed the example of Amazon Alexa, where we can use them to set some automated reminder to remind us on a periodic basis for self-assessment. And in terms of the technologies specifically developed within interest in diabetic area, I found two examples. The first one being the Douglas et al. They showed that a gamified smartphone app called Social, it can actually improve adherence to physical exercise, nutrition regime, and drug therapy among when tested among 27 veterans with diabetes mellitus 2. And the app gave them reward points based on healthy behavior. So basically encouraged them to adhere to the treatment protocol as given by their physicians. And then Sensoria is another company that had developed this motor smart boot, as you can see in the right-hand bottom corner of the screen. It is equipped with sensors and it is connected through the cloud. And it again promotes patient adherence. Basically, it facilitates real-time assessment of offloading, giving you signals and some sort of tracking and helping managing weight-bearing physical activity dosage. And again, it sends alert messages to patients, caregivers, using the AI algorithm and assessment algorithms that it has in place. So very interesting technologies, and made with very specific target intentions of helping in the area of diabetic foot disease, but many which are present just around us, we just have to optimize their use for our targeted therapy. And coming to the third category, we have the connected care. We talked about how telemedicine has changed the world in connected care, and how recent studies have really demonstrated the effects, the not just efficacy, but overall cost effectiveness, the reliability of telemedicine support. And this has been widely observed in the DFU management space as well. For example, one study demonstrated that if we replace about 2/3 of in-clinic visits with telemedicine visits, then the general main outcomes like healing or amputation, they were just the same as if we had kept it all clinic visits. And another study reported then that while replacing face-to-face visits with telemedicine visits, it actually led to 41% reduction in total staff time in OPD consultations, of course, and that's directly convertible into noticeable cost savings. The third study that I've cited here, it demonstrated that there is a very good agreement between assessment of 3D wound pictures and face-to-face assessment of wounds, except for cases of course that needed development. So you can see how telemedicine is not just about talking on the phone or just telling your symptoms to doctors over a video call, but it is more also turning into visual assessment using of 3D wound picture assessment and lots more. And having significant cost savings as well as reduced burdens for the healthcare staff. The other subcategory here is the care coordination. Clinical decision support is one of the very, I would say, hot topics these days, one of the very emerging and rapidly growing fields, whether you talk about, let's say, automated softwares for detecting abnormalities in X-rays by neural networks for image detection, to maybe picking up cancer-specific mutations among patient data and notifying providers about it. So here, clinical decision support systems are basically have been used to alert primary care providers so that they can perform regular foot exams in clinical settings. When we talk about AI and application of it into clinical decision support, we may many times think of sophisticated technologies which are fairly complicated and doing, churning a huge set of data to get us some insights to help clinicians. That does happen many of the times, but sometimes small, simple, straightforward technology is enough and very effective in making a big change. And example here is very evident of that. So one study has showed that after implementing a simple reminder system in the EHR, reporting of diabetic foot examination increased from 4% to a whooping 78%. So it's just about thinking right and putting in the technology at the right place. And then hospital at home is another subcategory here. So giants like Best Buy Health, which we all know is kind of a leading provider for technology products, it's now expanding its digital health wellness portfolio and adding services needed to help patients with chronic illness and providing more at-home facilities, at-home services related to health. There's another company called Medically. It's a Boston-based startup, Medically Home, which is offering a very good, well-integrated technology platform and network of in-home services under the umbrella of Mayo Clinic physicians and providers guidance. So they're bringing convenient, ready to access solutions with credibility of a very prestigious medical institution at the doorsteps of patients, which is commendable. And similarly, we have disease and risk prediction area. I know we might be going little over the time, so I'll quickly wrap up just by giving one example in this category of Clinic Think. It's an AI software deployed at Barts Health NHS Trust. It can scan millions of documents to find patients with diabetic foot disease. And it actually improved the detection to 30% more patients with diabetes and 375% more patients with diabetic foot problems. So you can imagine and think the potential of such AI algorithms in overall improving the space and preventive healthcare and detection at a timely manner. And as we had discussed, there are several facilitators and barriers of using digital technology in management of DFUs. We have discussed the facilitators in a way when we discuss the subcategories about self-management, about prevention, monitoring, convenience, community support. The barriers is when people are not technologically savvy or they are not interested in using digital technologies, and if they just are not interested in patient engagement, or there are privacy issues and things like that. So all in all, while the space is very promising and there are several emerging technologies for management and prevention of DFUs, general awareness among patients and intelligence of providers and various stakeholders of the industry to put the right piece of puzzle at the right time to make sense of it is important. So I will finish it here, and here are some of the references that I used for this presentation. And while I know I'm a little over the time, but I'd be happy if there are any questions that I can answer.